Hi again, Nat from the future here, back and better than ever, ready for part 2 of our character archetypes video. Thanks so much for coming back, for tuning in again. We love to see it. Last week we went over the first 6 character archetypes. This week we're going to go over the rest of the 12 archetypes, and then next week we are going to be jumping into protagonists and villains for each archetype, so I can show you a little bit deeper how to use these character templates in your stories. As I said last week, I recorded the majority of this video at like 12:30, and there are some things I just completely forgot to mention that I think are worth mentioning. So I'm going to be popping in from time to time in this video to kind of add some more information, and also at the time of filming I didn't know I was going to be breaking this video into 2 parts. So oh my god, I just flung my hair tie across the room. So I will plug in the basic overview of the 12 archetypes from last week. Skip to this time if you want to skip that, because I know some of you have probably seen it in that first video already. And then we will go ahead and jump after that into the lover. Let's go. Couple of quick caveats before we really get started. I will be telling you the why of every single fear on this archetype list. This why is kind of from me. I was a little bit hard pressed to find an actual motivation or reason for each of the archetype's fears in my research, so I used a little bit of my own psychology knowledge, which there's a lot. If you saw my PTSD video, I think it's this side, somewhere. It's in there. I know some stuff about psychology, so I kind of wrote out a why behind the fear. But it's called because. That because part of each archetype card is not the whole true because. It's not the whole reason. This will kind of make more sense when we go into it. I wonder if I should put this disclaimer at the end. But your job as the author is to figure out what event in this character's life, when did they learn, what taught them to fear this thing? What taught them that the because is true? So I guess the because is kind of like a good misbelief to use. They build their world on this because, and it's wrong. So what in their life, what did they experience that made them think that way and feel that way? That's what you need to figure out, because it's going to be different for every single character. You could have 1,000 characters of the same archetype, and they could have 1,000 different ways that they became that archetype and learned that because is their because, you know? So you need to figure that out. And then you also need to figure out how their fatal flaws and redeeming qualities present in them, because every character can be different in behavior too. So yeah. Let's do a quick overview of the basics first. Carl Jung's 12 archetypes look a little something like this. You have 4 central motives, I guess, motivations. Provide structure, spiritual journey, connect to others, and leave a mark. So this is like, just in general, very, very, very high level what this character wants. Then you break it down a little bit more into like these one-word descriptions. So every character is going to try to achieve their main motivation through a certain thing. For example, the ruler tries to provide structure using control. So that's kind of like their tool, their main tool. So with all of that being said, here are the 12 archetypes. First we have the innocent. The innocent is in the spiritual journey category, and their little word is safety. They are very motivated by finding safety and keeping safety. So that's what their whole world is. Then we have the sage, also the spiritual journey category, but they use knowledge. Knowledge, skill, that's their main tool, their main weapon when it comes to the world. And then last we have the explorer. Their word is freedom. They want freedom. They're using their freedom. Freedom. Then you have the leave a mark section. The rebel operates from a space of liberation. Different from freedom. The explorer is just wanting to be free. The outlaw wants to be liberated. So freed from something. The explorer just wants to be free in general. The outlaw wants to escape something, kind of. The magician works through power, And the hero aims for mastery. Then in the connect to others section, you have the lover, who really, really prioritizes and cares about intimacy, connection, deep connection. You have the jester, whose word is pleasure. So any kind of pleasure, any kind of enjoyment, that's what the jester's there to find and take. And then you have the orphan. Their word is belonging. They search for, create, and wish for belonging. Then lastly, the provide structure section. This is the caregiver, who operates mainly through service, the ruler, who really, really, really values control, and the creator, who uses innovation to provide structure to the world. So there are the 12 types. Now let's go deeper into each type. Next is the lover. The lover wants close relationships. A lot of the time I see people saying that the lover wants really want one intense relationship, which is true, but I think they want intense relationships and a lot of closeness and intensity in every relationship that they have with everyone that they know. So the lover wants close relationships so they can feel loved and connected. They fear isolation and loneliness because they don't actually know how to take care of themselves or love themselves. So they find that in others. And so when others leave, it's very hard for them to have the same level of self-compassion and self-love and good self-talk and self-awareness. They don't love themselves. They don't love themselves and they don't take care of themselves. They need others to do that for them, so they seek out very, very intense connections that are going to kind of fill that void. Their fatal flaws are that they can be obsessive, jealous, and lack their own identity. Their redeeming qualities are that they are kind, passionate, and they will sacrifice for those that they love. This is the archetype you want on your team sometimes. When you are writing the lover, you're writing a character who's going to avoid loneliness and isolation like the plague. That's their worst fear ever. They are not going to want to be lonely or isolated, so they are going to do whatever they can to avoid that. Which is why they can be obsessive and jealous, because they can cling on so hard and attach so hard, especially when they're feeling anxious and insecure about that. But also, to kind of go to the more positive side of things, when you're writing the lover, you're writing a character who's always going to be thinking about those around them, who's always going to want to be they're a little bit less service oriented than the caregiver, who we're going to get into later today, but they are still very others minded. They're still going to be very aware of and caring for the people around them. So a lot of the time their focus isn't going to be primarily on them. If it is on them at all, it's going to be in relation to someone else. It's going to be, who am I with this person and how do I hang on to that? The lover's keystone memory is going to be something about being alone, and not even alone, but just disconnected. They want to feel loved and connected, right? So give them a time in their life when they didn't. Give them a time in their life when they felt unloved, disconnected. Why was that so painful for them? The lover's character arc is going to be realizing that they are their own person and it's okay to be that, and finding who they are, because they haven't spent much time doing that. So their character arc is going to consist of developing their own identity outside of people and slowly learning to be more comfortable with themselves, be more comfortable with being alone, maybe trust themselves more, and just learning how to love themselves even in the wake of disaster and loneliness and being isolated. If you want to gut punch this character, make them be abandoned or isolated and have them work through that. So lots of good growth there for the lover. Next, number 8, the jester. The jester's main want in life is levity and fun. They want to laugh, they want to play, they want to experience everything good in life so they can live in the moment and so that they can have a good time. They fear boredom and being boring, and that's because they are always in survival mode. Always, always, always. They cannot get out, and they fear that if they slow down or stop, bad things will happen. So they stay in the survival mode, they keep joking around, they keep playing, they keep distracting. The jester's fatal flaws are that they are irresponsible, they can be really distracting, and they waste their time. Their redeeming qualities are that they are fun, irreverent, and upbeat. They are fun to be around. They truly believe laughter is the best medicine, etc. The jester is going to be very upbeat and fun, but that does mean that they will also be exhausting to some. If you put a jester and a sage in a room, good luck. When you are writing the jester, where did they learn that they have to be surviving all of the time? Where did they learn that it's unsafe to live your life rather than just survive it? When in their life did bad things happen because they slowed down or stopped or weren't laughy and go lucky and bubbly? The Jester's character arc is usually going to follow them learning to be bored, learning to sit with negativity, learning to let those things in rather than just running from them constantly. Okay, 4 more. So now we have the Orphan. The Orphan's core desire is to connect with those around them so they can find belonging. They fear exclusion and rejection because they believe they are not as good as everyone else and that they must prove themselves somehow in order to belong. Their fatal flaws are that they are eager to please, they lack confidence, and they're very dependent on others. Their redeeming qualities are that they're empathetic, understanding, and ethical. Because they have been through so much, the Orphan is going to try and alleviate whatever other people are going through, whether that's through ethics and what's morally right and wrong and standing up for that, or whether it's just helping them socially, just being with them. When you are writing the Orphan, give them a childhood memory or something where they learned that other people are better than them and that they get recognition if they do something good or difficult, but otherwise they kind of fade into the background. When did that happen? How did it create this idea in their heads? The Orphan's character arc is often going to involve them realizing they are good enough, realizing they belong anywhere that they go, and stepping into that and claiming that power. And finally doing everything they wanted when they felt like they didn't belong. Next is the Caregiver. The Caregiver wants to protect and care for everyone so they can be helpful and appreciated. So they want to be seen when they're helping. Sometimes. Maybe not all the time. Maybe sometimes they'll do an anonymous thing. They fear being selfish or self-important because they believe prioritizing themselves above others in any situation would make them a bad person. And their fatal flaws are that they're self-forgetting, they can often get exploited, and they struggle to stand up for themselves. But their redeeming qualities are that they are nurturing, sensitive, and dependable. When you are writing the Caregiver, you're writing someone extremely service-oriented. They are always going to be thinking about how to take care of the people around them. They're the caregiver. But you're also writing someone who's selfish in a backwards way. They are very selfless and giving, but they do want something in return, and they want appreciation, and they want recognition and acknowledgement. They want to feel seen and loved in return. So they're going to be a little bit selfish. They're going to be a little bit self-focused, a little bit more like, what about me? Don't forget to put that in there. So when you're writing a Caregiver, when in their life did they learn that they should never think about themselves and just always take care of the people around them, and why? And their arc is typically going to consist of them learning that they are also a person. They also exist. They can also speak up for themselves. They don't always have to be helping others. Sometimes they can help themselves. The Ruler. The Ruler wants power and control. So your classic action movie villain. The Ruler wants to have the power so they can create community and prosperity, but they fear being overthrown or overpowered because they believe that other people can't be trusted, and they fear mistreatment and injustice at the hands of those who possess more power than they do, for themselves and for those they love. Their fatal flaws are that when they get scared or when being overpowered is on the horizon, they become paranoid, they become rash, they get defensive. They're all about protecting themselves and what they have and staying in power. They're all about staying in power. Their redeeming qualities are that they are authoritative, so they can be authoritarian. They can be very demanding and controlling. Healthy rulers are going to be authoritative, meaning that they are much less my way or the highway, pretty much. They're also going to be traditional and responsible. Okay. When you're writing the Ruler, I think the biggest thing I want to say about the Ruler is that you're not always writing this power-hungry egomaniac who is going to trample everybody to get power. In fact, the upcoming case study I have for this character is Leslie Knope. So Leslie Knope is not a crazy power-driven person. Your character can have this archetype and still be good. You're just writing somebody who's going to feel like they are the most capable and competent. they are the ones, obviously, who should be in power because they know what to do and they know what's gonna help, and other people don't know that as much. And if other people are in power, it might turn out to be dangerous for some people. So you're writing a character who really does care about other people, and they will lose sight of what they're doing to other people to get the power, but they are most always service-minded, kind of. Like, they're most always thinking about helping other people. Even the villains, in kind of a backwards way. We'll get into that next week. So when you are writing a ruler, show a time that they were treated unfairly or hurt because someone had more power over them. And why did they choose to be the most powerful from here on out? Always. The arc is going to be them kind of loosening their grip a little bit, letting other people control, maybe even stepping away from control entirely, and realizing that they don't have to be completely in control to be in control. Lastly, we have the creator, aka the artist. The artist wants to create so they can realize their creative visions. This type, more than any other type, is going to have so many ideas, so many game plans, so many hopes and dreams, and they don't chase them because they fear mediocrity and failure. Their identity is tied to their creations, so if they want to be seen as successful, what they create has to be seen as successful. Their fatal flaws are that they are perfectionistic, dramatic, and they can become super paralyzed in the face of failure. Like, if something isn't going to work out, they just won't do it, or they'll just stop. And a lot of the time they won't know why. They just are frustrated that they're stopping. Does it sound like I have experience? Their redeeming qualities are that they are imaginative, expressive, and highly individualistic. So when you are writing a creator character, you are going to want to say, when did they learn that their achievements equal their worth? What they create equals their worth. Without their creations, they're nothing. When was that imparted to them? And then typically the creator's positive arc is going to move from them creating because they need to be seen and heard and validated, and they need people to see that they can create so that they can feel successful and fulfilled. Moving from that to a space of, I'm creating because I want to, because it's good, because I am passionate about it. A more grounded, identity-based state. So there you have it. Those are the 12 archetypes made by Carl Jung. They are amazing. I love them. The only part that you don't have so far is like the characters, backstory and past and why they believe what they believe and do what they do. And then also, what do they do? Because a lot of personality tests will be like, this is your personality, but really it's like your behavior isn't your personality. Because sometimes the personality will be similar, the motivation will be similar. Like if the outlaw wants freedom, if they want liberation, maybe they're gonna go through it in a way that's more service-oriented like the caregiver, or more rule-oriented like the ruler. Use these to your advantage, use them, to truly torture your characters, because the best stories, as we've discussed, happen as a chain of cause and effect from the protagonist's first decision ever. Their first decision's all the way up here, and then a cause and effect follows. They keep making decisions, but cause and effect follows and follows and follows to the very disaster point, and then to the end. That disaster is going to hit so much harder if the character creates the disaster for themselves. So use those fears. That's all I have for this week. You can find my Instagram over at Natalie C. Writing. There's a link in the description below this video if you would like to join my email list. Thank you all for coming and hanging out with me as we talked about the 12 archetypes. Next week we will be going over villains, good guys, and that's it. I was going to say a third thing, but there is no third thing. That's what we're doing next week. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. I will see you next time. Happy trails!